On today's show, we'll give our take on the voter ID showdown in Minnesota. Then, Joey Jardine stops by to discuss her group's efforts to pass voter ID. And finally, we'll discuss the race for president. Stay tuned, Full Spectrum is coming up next. One of the hot topics around the Minnesota Capitol is the issue of voter identification. This topic has also been a point of interest in many surrounding states. Guys, what are your general thoughts about voter ID?
You know, I personally am all for it. You know, I feel that, you know, there are requirements in order for you to vote. And what is the point of having you go and vote if they can't verify that those requirements are being met? Because you can't verify that a person is a U.S. citizen, that they are above the age of 18, and that they aren't a felon without an ID. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I guess my concerns would be I haven't heard a lot of people talking about people who aren't supposed to be voting. I can't imagine that you know, people with no ID or felons or people without the proper documentation are showing up at official polling places. So and it's interesting that some of the people that are talking about this are talking about limiting the role of government, and here we are again, you know, going down the slippery slope. So I probably wouldn't be for it.
In my personal opinion, I guess, voting is really one of the most important things that Americans can do. It's really the way they participate in government. And American citizens really want to know that their vote is counting, and they want to know that the election cycle itself is legitimate, and that's important. And I throw my support behind voter identification because I think it's just something that we already kind of do. To be honest with you, here at this university, we have to show our ID just to get into a hockey game. And think of how non-significant a hockey game is to the political world, I guess. You know, so if we have to show it for a hockey game just to get in here, why can't we just show a little picture ID that it is of ourselves, that it is who we are, and just be able to vote? There's many questions, and a lot of people have raised questions about, well, will it turn off certain groups? Will it, you know, disenfranchise certain groups? What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that by having a voter ID, will that lead to less people voting?
Well, let me just say first thing, I would probably think the reason we show our student ID at the hockey game is because we get it free. And it's an economic issue. I'm hoping that this will serve as a voter registration drive, because again, I don't think people are showing up that aren't supposed to be voting. I think it's a risky move right now for Republicans because it may energize people who normally wouldn't vote. And I think if that happens, that there'll be some serious number issues, you know, if the issue stays in the forefront. So,
you know, well, the way that I look at it, if they charge for a voter identification, which I'm guessing that a lot of people are arguing that, you know, you can't cost money because, you know, then poor people can't vote. I would look at it as being almost, in effect, a poll tax. So, I mean, if it did cost as much as a driver's license, you know, then no. But then again, everyone should at least have a state ID, you know, whether it's a driver's license or just a regular ID, or just an identification card that's not a driver's license. I mean, it should say on there, you know, what I would ask that, you know, instead of, you know, coming out with this, you know, official voter ID, on their driver's license say which district they are allowed to vote in. I mean, it's pretty, I mean, because otherwise I could go to, let's say, like the University of Wisconsin, even though I'd never go and be a Badger, not in my life. I could go there and vote in the Wisconsin election and send back an absentee ballot for the state of Minnesota. I mean, is it illegal? Yes, of course it is, but it's possible to do, and people do it.
I've spoken to one of my professors who is from Europe, and he said that over in the European Union, which he's from Poland, is what I should say, and over in Poland and in the European Union, they all have voter identification cards where you can just go across across country lines and just show your voter identification. So it's interesting that in so many ways the American system of government is kind of pushing towards that European style. But in terms of voter identification, we're kind of saying, no, let's not do that. So we're not following their act. I think that's kind of just an interesting thing that's happening in this country. What do you guys think?
I think, and I think the beginning of that problem for a lot of people would be using the word European, because there are a lot of special interest groups that represent Latinos, seniors, and minorities that are saying that this is going to unfairly target them. So, you know, if you start framing the discussion, you know, well, we're moving in that direction. I think it may end up becoming a race issue, and of course, you know, the seniors have been lumped into this conversation as well now, which I think is good if you're on the other side, to say it's going to affect minorities, poor people, and seniors, because seniors will show up to vote. They will come out and they will voice their opinion about certain issues. So I haven't heard enough or seen enough to say that there's a problem.
I don't actually see it as being a race problem. If you're an illegal alien in this country, you already aren't eligible to vote. What's the problem with requiring voter identification to say that, oh, you know, you're an illegal alien, you can't produce this identification, you can't vote.
Yeah.
But if you can't vote, you can't vote.
Yeah.
You know, right now how it is that you can't vote, but people can vote.
Yeah, and I agree. But the question still remains, was there a problem, and who thinks that illegal aliens are showing up to vote? Because if they, so what are we expecting to gain? You know, I understand the concerns, but you know, as a country, do we believe that people who are not supposed to be participating in the electoral process are participating? I don't think so. So I just see it, you know, I think it's at some point it's going to come down to an issue that has nothing to do with voter ID. I'm not, you know, saying what side, but at some point that's what it's going to come down to. And I think it's a very risky at this point in the election process to start drawing more lines. And
I think it's really just a big push to really take away any type of fraud from our system, because even, I guess, ideally one vote in voter fraud that wasn't supposed to be there takes away from credibility within our system. Can we ever eventually get rid of all voters who aren't supposed to be there? I don't know, and probably not. There's always going to be some type of way to cheat the system and to find ways around that. I think this is really just a step towards trying to become more legitimate, because as we saw in was that 2008, the Al Franken, Norm Coleman Senate, I mean, that came down to a pretty slim majority, pretty slim number of votes. And yeah, we'll see. Illegal votes could take away, but that's just something I guess we're going to have to see how it goes in November. But coming up after the break, we'll hear from our special guest who is making a push to get voter ID legalized in the state of Minnesota.